Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports. Always great to have Dan on, oh my gosh, pretty much any sports topic. Dan joins us on 365 Sports, Craig and Paul, and I'm David Smoak. Dan, thanks for your time. We had an opening segment discussing Deion. He put something out on Twitter. Shadeur had his comment a couple of days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. I like the guy. I like what he's trying to do. Is there, in your opinion, just no matter what he does, there's going to be a lightning rod of those for or against him, in your opinion?
He's definitely hit that stage of the game, which I would add probably always been his thing, and I find kind of entertaining, and I don't mind, for the sake of college football, to have some characters that inspire passion one way or the other. But, like, clearly – I think I saw the other day, it was like the spring game attendance at Colorado was only 28,000 this year. And it rained, and people were like, oh, see, they don't care about it. And it's like, it's still a pretty good number. And like, this is Colorado, not Alabama. And, you know, it's whatever he comes up with is going to be fiery. You know, would I recommend any college football coach to go on Twitter and argue with players or critics or anyone? No, I would not. I don't recommend anybody go on social media and fight with other people or get all upset about it or whatever. You're Deion Sanders. You're prime time. But hey, he gives us something to talk about on May 1st. So I'm kind of a content vulture. I'll take it. It's not the worst thing in the world if he's standing up for his program, I guess.
Yeah, Dan, and I think in this particular conversation the last 24, 48 hours is getting lost is Deion didn't make those comments, Shadeur did. And I think that's what kind of some people are reacting to is just it's odd for the starting quarterback to be on his spaces, dogging a former teammate, and it's created this conversation of like, is that cool or is that kind of out of bounds? But it all goes back to Deion, obviously, because that's his son, that's his quarterback, and he's got to defend him.
Yeah, and I think for Shadeur, again, they can all do what they want.
Sure.
You're trying to get the job as the number one draft pick next year, and this is the type of stuff an NFL team goes, all right, wait a minute, what's this? Right? It's one thing to be part of the family business of Colorado football and stand up for your dad or the program or this or that. He's also an individual business. So obviously the biggest thing is how well he plays football, but it's certainly a different character trait or different behavior for a guy. Now, he undoubtedly does a million other things great and all of that, but he should probably look into that. But yeah, Colorado, look, they're doing it their way. I thought Deion Sanders would recruit high schools more, and I thought he would get, even if he was only trying to sign 15 kids a year and go heavy on the transfer portal, of those 15 kids, I thought almost all of them would be 4 or 5 stars. I thought he would get great recruits and kind of have a hybrid of development along with adding so many transfer portal guys. I've been surprised at how he's just basically going almost all portal. And is that sustainable? Can you really build a real winner for that? He talked at the spring game about the goal being to win a bowl game, which is certainly a far more reasonable goal than like last year. He's talking about going to playoffs. He inherited a 1-win team. So I think in year 2 to go win a bowl game, any bowl game, would be really, really good progress for any coach. But at this point, I don't know if that's like enough success to handle his critics. So it's all over the place with primetime, but he's always been good at making himself the center of attention. He's made a lot of money off of that, and generally speaking, he's backed it up, and now he's going to have to back it up this way.
Also, he's made this weird push into wearing coveralls and overalls. That's another topic for another day, but maybe he can pull it off, Dan.
Here he wants he so loves Colorado, he wants to get his own snowmobile line.
Yeah.
Primetime snowmobiles. Now, I'm guessing there ain't a whole lot of snowmobiles in Waco.
No.
But if anybody has seen one of a snowmobile, is awesome. Okay, it is a motorcycle on snow, but you can crash it and die. There's no question. but generally speaking, they're pretty safe. It's like a ski-doo or something like that, right? Jet ski.
Mm-hmm.
I think a Deion Sanders snowmobile would be awesome. I kind of want one now.
Dan, the NFL draft was this last week, and the Falcons confused everybody and are kind of using some circular logic on why they drafted Michale Penix. Even Arthur Blank didn't seem to understand it in the moment, and Michale Penix might wind up being a great quarterback. He might win the Falcons a Super Bowl, but if everything goes according to plan, he's not going to take a snap for them for at least 2 or 3 years. What did you think of that decision and the way it kind of made a franchise that looked like it's, had this new start, looked like they're, false starting a little bit?
To me, it was like a plan that would make sense on a spreadsheet, but I don't know if it will in real life. And part of it is this. You say, okay, Michale Penix, you need to sit for 3 years, and then when Kirk Cousins' contract kind of plays out with the guarantee money and we're not taking this huge cap hit, then you can be the starter. I wouldn't expect Michale Penix to agree to that. I expect Michale Penix to say, yeah, I'm going to try to win the job on day one. This is a 24-year-old quarterback who's played 6 seasons of college football, lifted Indiana to heights they hadn't found before or since, and then led Washington to the national title game. This is not 21-year-old Jordan Love showing up from Utah State saying, I'm going to need some seasoning, and guess what? The starting quarterback right now is Aaron Rodgers, who's just going to be going to win the MVP. Like, I don't really have a chance of winning that job. I think of all the people immediately tuned to Cousins and said, well, that's not fair to Cousins. He was expecting they'd use that number 8 pick, and all that Falcons were on a edge rusher or trade down to get 2 guys or some weapon that could help them out. I mean, they could have got Roma Dunze if they just wanted to keep the pick and go offense. They don't really need another receiver, but had they done it, I'm sure Cousins would be happy. I feel like they mostly were unfair to Michale Penix. You don't become the number 8 pick in the draft and go, I don't want to play. I want to sit until I'm 27 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're Michale Penix, you want to play, and I think he's going to try to do everything he can to get out on that field. And this brings a whole different element to the deal. Why is there not a quarterback controversy? There wasn't in Green Bay when you have Aaron Rodgers that's won a Super Bowl and won MVP. Kirk Cousins is the new guy. He throws 2 picks in some half, and the Falcon fans are going to say, where's Penix? Maybe Penix shows out in the preseason or something. I just don't think in reality on a spreadsheet you figure everyone's going to accept their role and this is just going to work nicely. I think the human element here is going to be really interesting.
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you based up in Detroit or around Detroit?
I am.
Okay, so what were your thoughts just as a native, so to speak, on the whole event? I was in Detroit for the Super Bowl when they had it years ago, and it was not, the greatest, place in the world, I guess. It was not some of the other Super Bowl locations, let's say that. But, man, it seemed like a hell of an event this past weekend for the city of Detroit.
Well, it's the Paris of Southeast Michigan. So it's undeniable, beautiful. Now, I think the thing about this draft, which was really great for Detroit, was that it just showcased how far it came. And I think you're a perfect example of that, having been there in 2005. I mean, they were hosting a Super Bowl. The city was so far down then that they were like wrapping buildings to make them look like they weren't abandoned, and like it made fake storefronts so it looked like this block was occupied even though it wasn't. And the mere fact they didn't have to do that anymore shows how far downtown Detroit has come. And there's new skyscrapers and new condo developments and new restaurants, and the city looks nice at night and all of that. And for a city like Detroit, every city's got good sections and bad sections. The story of Detroit was always just the bad sections, and now it's at least got a a vibrant downtown that wasn't there before. So I find these things funny because they always talk about like the impact of hosting these events and the publicity you get. And it's like, how much publicity does, I don't know, Los Angeles need, right? Kind of everybody knows what it is. For Detroit, I think there really was incredible value that people all over the country looked and said, Detroit, maybe next time the Cowboys are playing up there, I'll go and follow that game, or maybe I'll check it out in the summer when the weather's nice or something. So there was a lot of civic pride in how it all went off.
Yeah, I thought it was a big deal in a good type of way for the city. So that was cool to see that. All right, so I saw an article from your podcast co-host, Ross Dellinger, who we talked to quite a bit as well, and it was talking about the issues that are already arising with the playoff that hasn't even started yet. And a chief amongst those from the, I guess, SEC perspective, Big Ten perspective, is that of rematches, Dan, in the first round potentially, and trying to avoid those, which is just kind of peculiar to me because then it sounds like you would have to rig things a certain way and not just do it based on honest seeding. But when each conference is now going to have like 25 teams in the next couple of years, it feels like anyways, and you're resorting down to basically 2 or 3 conferences, and you've got a 12 that will probably be 16-team playoffs sooner rather than later. Aren't rematches inevitable? Like, there's not a perfect way to do this. How is it already being picked apart in this manner? I just find that pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm already over the Big Ten SEC complaints about this. I mean, who told you to go 18 teams? Who told you to expand this big and then go, I can't believe it, there's going to be rematches. There'll be some rematches. These are rematches from the middle of the season. There were rematches when we had the 2-team DCS.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Alabama now. These things happen. And Alabama, Georgia a couple years ago. We almost had Michigan, Ohio State a year ago. They're going to happen. It's nothing you can do about it. Do not rig up if it's all things being equal and maybe you can just nudge it or something, or you just got to make your pick, then fine. But for the most part, rematches are going to happen. That's fine. This is what happens when you overexpand conferences, and I just have no sympathy for all of a sudden standing around and going, well, wow, we might have a rematch. Well, no kidding.
Did you, and I thought I read this in Ross's article, and Dan, thanks for your time as always, that there was this, it's a group of 5, we need to include them, but now you already see them going, right? Is it that, well, wait a minute. In the NFL, you win divisions. Division winners get to go to the playoffs. A lot of them get a bye week. It's almost like, okay, we've come up with this, but let's pick it apart. Kind of like what Craig brought up, and also, but it's a group of 5 teams. Ew.
Yeah, and they're already whining about that anonymously. Like, well, what happens if, Tulane is 25th? That means, there were 6 or 7, 8 teams that could have been whatever it is. And you're like, enough, just enough. Okay? It's okay. A, this keeps you out of court. B, invents it's the same thing when they want to get rid of the automatic bids in the NCAA basketball tournament. And, this isn't fair. The Northeast Conference is in. Yeah, but you know what? That's what helps fuel the sport. Because every once in a while, St. Peter's does it. Well, actually, every year somebody does it. And this year it's Oakland U, and last year it's St. Peter's and whatever. Like, just can we just not have every single thing be a land grab? On our podcast, I said they're the casinos. You used to play roulette, and there'd be 1 green number, then there were 2. Now some of them have 3 because they got to rig the rules even more in their favor. And it's like cheering for the house in a casino, watching someone play roulette and cheering for the dealer. It's like, come on. The world is not going to end if your 4th place team gets nudged out because Memphis had a really good season and gets to be the 12th seed. Let's just enjoy college football and stop complaining about everything.
Yeah, to me, it's when your favorite local restaurant closes and becomes an Applebee's, and you're like, awesome. You're like, hey.
Yeah, you're so hoping for that. I don't like these mom and pop stores. Can I get another one of these? It's just like they're already whining about. I have no patience for it. This is the deal. It's going to be great. We need a little bit of flavor. I don't know if these guys will ever win a game. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Who cares? Let them in. This is a better sport when it's a big sport. It's 130 teams. It's a preposterous idea to have 130 teams play for one championship. The school, none of it makes sense. Embrace the chaos, and it's all right if we give throw a bone to the other, 80, 90 teams to get a chance to have one of you get in this tournament. And who knows? Look at if Tulane ever gets in, or Tulane ever gets in and wins a game, or whoever it is, it'll be so exciting and so shocking, and it'll blow what the Oakland U and the Abilene Christians and those out of the water, the publicity. It would be absolutely amazing.
Last thing for you, Dan. I know there's topics that we could just rehash constantly, kind of like the college football landscape, college sports landscape, trying to find solutions. That's easily talked about every single day. But this latest framework that was thrown out there just a couple of days ago, have you had much time to digest that? And in general, is this just another idea that comes and goes, or do you think there's actually some meat on the bone and getting some settlements and maybe getting some less noise over the next few years at the very least?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the direct compensation of athletes and basically employee status is coming, or something like that. There's just no way around it. In this case, it's House versus the NCAA, and these things are just sort of stepping stones. It was O'Bannon, right? Ed O'Bannon's first one, and then Alston, and now House. And they really got them where the NCAA, a lot of these schools that feel the need, they will have to settle. Now, others say that they shouldn't, but it's basically, if you lose this case, you owe the previous 4 years of NIL payments to all of the athletes that were prohibited from getting it. And so that number could go into the billions. So they kind of have that as the stick to say settle and allow direct compensation of the athletes. So this is going to be a process. At the end of the day, these guys are going to be employees or something very close. They're going to have a union or some kind of group to negotiate against, and that's just where we're headed on it. I don't know how to get they had many, many years to come up with a system that wouldn't lead to this, where courts are deciding it. But they didn't do that. And the courts have shown absolutely no sympathy for the concept of amateurism or the NCAA or any of these schools. So you're running a real risk of just losing and losing and losing. And so eventually we're going to get to that spot. And some of it will be, people complain, hey, every year these guys are transferring. Well, you can sign them to some kind of deal. You got to stay 3 years or this or that, or you could settle some of the problems that are driving, I think rightfully, fans upset, or at least, frustrating them with like, well, I like that guy on my team. I don't want to see him leave. There's certain positives that will come out of it, I think, for everybody.
Dan, as always, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. We covered so much. Dan Wetzel with us, great national writer for the Yahoo Sports on 365 Sports.
Yeah, unpacked a